Welcome to the Phenomenal Podcast, an authentic forum where real conversations happen. I'm your host, Phen, and each episode features an unscripted chat with everyday people. Get ready for a genuine, raw discussion. Enjoy the conversation. What's going on, everyone? It's episode 23 of the Phenomenal Podcast. I have a super special guest with me today, EA EmilyAnn, and she lives in Japan. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and just tell us a little bit of why she's there and everything like that. And then we'll jump into the conversation. So take it away.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to be here. Super humbled that you invited me on this podcast and excited where it takes us. But yeah, as Steven said, my name is EmilyAnn, but I also go by EA, so both is great. And I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been living in Osaka, Japan for, in 2 weeks, it'll be 2.5 years. So I'm part of an organization that is focused on church planning. And so, I've been here learning the language, just falling in love with Japan more and more every day.
2.5 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. When we got on this call, I was like, okay, we've been here 2 years. And then I realized, no, in 2 weeks, it'll be 2.5 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. How long did you know you wanted to go down this road into the missions field?
Yeah, great question. When I think about this, I kind of love my answer to this because I think if you had asked me, I would say about 2 years where I was like, I want to go. This is my commitment to going. But if you ask people around me, they would have said, oh, we knew she was going to do this ever since she became a Christian. Like when I was a kid, people just weren't surprised when I asked them. And I thought that was such a special, confirmation from the community around me. But a little bit about me, I went to TCU, and that's where I made the decision to move overseas. And so I was around new people who didn't know me my entire life. But when I came back to Atlanta for fundraising and sharing about what I would be doing overseas, I had people say, yeah, that makes sense. We figured you'd probably do something like that. And that was just so special to me to have people in my corner say, yeah, that makes sense for you. And we're excited to see where that goes. And so, for me, it was when I turned 20, I went to a college discipleship program and learned about the nations and learned about that there's billions of people around the world that will live and die without hearing the gospel. And I just realized I want in on that, whether it's actually moving overseas, if it's praying for the nations, if it's giving financially, any way God you'd have me be a part of it, I'm all in. And so that was when I was 20. And then when I was 22 was when I decided to finally be a part of the actual moving here.
Dang, that's super cool. It's so crazy how well God knows us, even when we don't actually know ourselves, but the people around us can see it, and things just check out, and that's a cool story. So
yeah, it's so special. I'll never forget my best friend and my roommate from college. I had decided to move overseas and I was nervous. It was exciting telling people, but also kind of, I'm sure everyone feels this when they graduate college and you're telling your friends where you're moving, where you're going. And I'll never forget, I walked into her room and I said, okay, I have some big news to tell you. And she didn't even let me finish. She said, you're moving overseas, aren't you? And I was like, wow, yeah, I am. She's like, I was just waiting for you to figure that out for yourself. It was just this crazy moment that I'll never forget. And it was just so cool that she didn't even let me finish the sentence. And she was like, okay, well, let's figure this out and let's get you ready and excited about this. And it was just such a cool time of life. And I've just really seen the how do I say this? Support. And when you have people around you that are yes, this is great. And this is a good fit. Just even the way people encourage me here, it's not even in my own giftings. It's what God's given to me. But to have a team of people that are wow, this is good. And let's do this. And makes me feel less alone because I'm not alone in any of that. We're all a part of it.
Absolutely. So backstory for the listeners, two that I have right now. But Josie, my wife, and I, we saw EmilyAnn when we went to Japan in April. And one of the hardest things for me while I was there was being like a true minority. Like, like that's never, I've never experienced that in my whole life. And I mean, I've gone to like Latin American countries and things like that, but that's a culture and people that I'm familiar with. But being in Japan, I was so like placed in a completely different place. No one really speaks any English. It was really hard to adjust to. So it's good to. I don't know if you feel that way all the time too, but like it's good to hear that you have that community because I know you're there with some other Americans as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here with a team of about 9 adults, 1 child. So, I'm like a family style.
yeah,
100%. We feel that all the time. And I think even talking to different people that, like other missionaries that live here, it's a shared experience, which I think makes me feel a little less like, do I just feel like I'm sticking out? Am I
yeah,
dressing the
right,
wrong way? Am I acting the wrong way? Um, I think language is a huge piece of that. But even, recently I've been thinking a lot about how Japan is an island, which maybe
yep,
everyone would think about, but historically they've been isolated. And so, yeah, you really do feel like the minority, and because everyone dresses the same, like there's such a high value and similarity in being a homogenous
yeah,
group that when us Americans like show up, um, even when you're making efforts to be like the Japanese, I came to terms with about a year in, that I will
mhm,
never look Japanese and I probably won't ever like sound perfectly Japanese. But I can like invest in people's lives and try to figure this
yeah,
out. But I will never look Japanese. And I had to just realize that like face value, they're going to see
right,
me coming and they'll know that
yeah,
I'm
right,
I also have like blonde hair, which is, I'm sure when Josie
yeah,
might have felt this when she was here, not a
uh,
thing.
right,
Yeah, and just learning like, okay, my outside will actually never change, but in
yeah,
other ways, like the way I think, the way I act, like can be different, and having to kind of
sure,
separate those two. But I'm always encouraged when people visit and they're like, "Do you feel this too?" And I say, "Yeah, I feel it all the time."
yeah,
So you're not alone. You're in good company.
yeah. It was really interesting, like feeling that way, and I think it intimidated me while I was on the trip and I was there. But then coming home and telling people about what it was like and all the things that we did, and like looking back, I enjoyed the trip way more than I thought I was like in the moment. And now it'd be so cool to go back with that perspective because like when we went, we had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
So now I like, we just went for fun. I can't even imagine trying to immerse myself in the culture and learn the language and make friends because those are all the things that you're doing. So like, how hard has that been?
It's a great question. Which also I wanted to commend you and Josie really quick. I remember when we
Oh,
had dinner, I think Josie was like, well, we looked some stuff up. And that is like such a win. I think you'd be
oh,
surprised
yeah.
the like value of knowing, hey, you're gonna have to yell people over when you order at restaurants so that you
Oh,
know that you're not gonna get irritated when you're
right.
there. So
Yeah.
I love that about when you guys came. But yes. Yeah, I think before we moved here, so a little bit of my backstory, like I said, I graduated from university, was headed overseas, was in COVID. I think everyone felt a little bit of that. And for like a year and a half, 2 years, was working in Wisconsin with a church there and really began praying in our community for Japan. Began just like, we would meet every single morning and pray for a portion of time for Japan, for the friends that we'd make, for our visas, all the logistics, because we had heard that it would be really hard to make friends just through research, through other missionaries who have been here historically. Like, sadly, and I disagree with this, Japan is called a missionary graveyard,
Mm,
which that has not been our experience at all. I would say our
hmm.
experience looks radically different than historically people would say. Like the spiritual temperature of Japan is, it was really easy by God's giftings to make friends when we moved here. And we were shocked. Like one of my closest Japanese friends, we made week 1 being here. And
Yeah.
we were not prepared for that, to have people be
Right.
warm to us. I mean, especially right after COVID, when there's such a nervousness, I think, everywhere and with everyone,
Hmm.
but to say, no, I'm willing to, talk to the foreigner, I'm willing to be friends with her, like, was just such a huge win. And um, I think just friendships have been so much deeper than I ever expected. I knew when I came here,
Oh, that's good.
we just prayed that there would be friends, but when there's so many cultural differences, there's language barriers. I just didn't
Mm.
know how like deep we'd get, and I just had no idea what to expect. But then being here, I'm like, these are truly some of my closest friends that if and whenever I leave, like it's going to be so sad to leave them. Like they're
Yeah.
truly my friends, which was just not anything that I expected. I don't think anyone on our team thought that we'd have these really solid friendships in Japanese people, that we are looking at ourselves like whenever they move, even for a new job in Tokyo, we're
Yeah.
crying because we just love our
Right.
friends so much. But people told us like that'll take 5-10 years to get there, and we've only been here
Wow.
2.5.
That is
Mhm.
so crazy. That is like, I mean, 100% the Lord right there, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, it's
uh,
amazing.
super cool. Okay.
Mhm.
Wait, so this is a less like deep question, but like some people who move to Tokyo from Osaka, do you guys still see
Mhm.
each other? Because like the bullet trains make transportation easier than like here in the States. So,
Yeah, I would say no, just
okay.
because yeah, the bullet train, for those listeners, like it's 2.5 hours from Osaka to Tokyo. Bullet train,
Mhm.
it's amazing. It's from one end of the country to the other. Um, but I would say I think the transition that at least my friends experience is they're graduating from university to the
Mhm.
work field. Um, and that is the most important foundational transition a Japanese person will go through.
Yeah.
So their life completely changes once they join a company.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like just things that people know about the work culture in Japan. It's they work long hours, they work really insane times, and so I think even as
Yeah.
much as I want to see my friends, it's a whole different life stage change for them when they do that.
Right.
But it is super convenient, and I mean, even my friends that live in like Nagoya and even like an hour and a half away, I'm
Mhm.
always surprised that um, they can like get to Osaka. Like I recently had a friend who lives in Nagoya for work. She's like, I'm here for a weekend, and I just love that can happen.
Yeah.
Like I love that can happen, but I think I'm truly just navigating like their work breaks and when do you come back and do you see your family? Do you
Yeah.
want to see
Right.
your family? Like all these different things that
Right.
um, is now that transition of okay, now I have friends in the work field. What's the Japanese work field like? I don't know. So just a
Right.
lot of kind of just learning what that looks like. My friends
Oh
will
yeah.
text me like, I'm in town. I'm like, great, let's hang out. So
That's so cool.
mhm.
Because like I mean, so you went to TCU, which is fairly far away from Atlanta. Like
Yeah.
there was never going to be a time you and my wife were better friends than we were, and like I don't think there would have ever been a time where Josie was like, "Hey, I'm gonna just come see you at TCU." Like that's just does so that it's so cool the transportation they have there because
Yeah.
even if it's like 2.5 hours, you just are sitting on a train. Like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to drive. You don't like you can work. You can read a book. You can do whatever. Like it's so awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. We're spoiled here. I love getting to
yeah.
tell my friends here. They're typically, I think Japanese people are confused when I tell them, no, there's not like this kind of transportation system in America,
Right.
because they're like, how do you get around? And I say, we all, majority of us drive cars. Like, yes, we do have
Hmm.
MARTA in Atlanta, and trying to explain MARTA in Japanese is a very fun experience. That's for sure. Like,
Trying to explain Marta in English is a fun experience.
yes, exactly. So I'm like, maybe we just don't even go there,
Yeah.
honestly. But yeah, I mean, it's a treat. I'm so glad you guys got to experience
It
the
was so cool.
culture there,
Hmm.
because I mean, people do. I don't think a lot of people, but people will commute like on the bullet train an hour, 2 hours. That's super
Yeah.
common here just
Yeah.
to do that. Whereas, and they just work. Yeah, you're so right. It's silent there, and
Yeah.
it's so fun to see. And it's because we don't have anything like it here. I'm always like, ooh, this is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were on the train a few times, and I said something, and I like, just talking in a normal voice, and Josie was like, "Shh, shh, like you're too loud." I was like, I'm sorry, don't mean to offend anybody, but
Yeah, you're like, I'm whispering, but it feels like a
yeah,
scream in a Japanese car.
exactly. Did we tell you the story? I don't know if it was in Osaka or when we got to Kyoto. I don't know if Josie told you this, but we had our giant suitcases. We feel like those jerks that are just like walking through the streets and like everything. And we get on one of the cars, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, man, there are a lot of women on this train, like this car. Uh, and Josie's looking around, and we get off, like get to wherever we need to go. We get off, and she's like, we were definitely in the woman only like thing. And I was like, well, I couldn't move. This bag was so big. I'm just that American that didn't know what was going on. But it's really funny.
Yeah,
I was wondering why
that's
people were looking at me funny too. I was like, I don't know what I'm
yeah.
doing. Just
Because people are gonna look at you anyways, because you're a
right,
foreigner. So
right,
you're on
yeah,
the women. And to your defense, that like each line system, there's a different like way that they do that per
okay,
whatever line. And so, I mean, to this day, thankfully, I'm a woman, so I can just walk on, and it's not a big
yeah,
deal.
right,
But before, with all of us, and our friends or who are guys are kind of like, hey, we can't get on the train here, and we're like, oh yeah, we didn't even think about that. Sorry.
Well,
And
that's funny. Like it's cool that they actually respect those rules. But I did see a few other men, and they were not Americans on there, so maybe they just like didn't care. But like that's when I got confused because I was looking around, and I was like, and I had seen one before, so
right.
I was like, I knew it was there, and then I looked around, and there was a lot of women. I was like, oh, we're on the wrong one. But then I saw a man, and I was like, oh, maybe not. Maybe there's just a lot more women here than in Tokyo because we like rarely saw any women in Tokyo. So
That's true. I feel like I've had a similar experience when you're. I know. I remember you guys telling me when you got breakfast one morning. Maybe it was all salary men, like all
yeah,
workers around here.
yeah.
And yeah, that's such a unique experience. I've definitely had moments like that where suddenly I'm looking around and I'm kind of like, I'm the only woman here, and I'm probably the only person under 50 in these, like just
Oh,
moments like that
yeah,
where
right.
I'm kind of looking around like, okay, maybe this isn't where I'm supposed to be, and next time I'll go a different route, and that's totally fine. But
Right.
I feel like tourists, especially, I'm like, can I help you? Because it's such a difficult thing to navigate when you just don't even know where you are. And then you're like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's here. That's not where I'm supposed to be right now.
Right. Yeah. And you just roll with it. But
Yeah.
I was super surprised how much English there was for transportation purposes. It was not, I mean, we got tripped up every once in a while, but for the most part, with Google Maps or Apple Maps, like riding the trains was very simple. Um, so just getting on the women only train one time, no big deal. It happens.
It happens and you roll with it. And now it's a fun
And you
story
roll with
that
it.
you can tell.
Yeah. Especially to people who understand like what I'm talking about. So,
Mhm.
but okay, we'll talk a little bit more about what you're actually doing. Like, what is your mission? You and your team's mission
Yeah.
there.
It's a good question. Yeah. So our heart is to, most importantly, impact the people of Japan with the gospel. So whether that's proclaiming the gospel in word and in deed, we just really want to see revival in Japan
Hmm.
and see just freedom for the Japanese people. And so how we seek to do that is through incarnational ministry. So what that means is kind of as I was sharing earlier, we seek to do everything in the most Japanese way possible as you can with the situation that you're in. So, a huge value of ours is learning Japanese and learning the language, the culture, just being learners of the people. I think because we really believe that transformational change happens within the context of relationship. And so, you
Hmm.
know, you can share the gospel with a stranger, of course. Praise God for opportunities like that.
Hmm.
but you also, I think, can process through the obstacles that there are to following Christ in the context of relationship. And so that's really what we want to see flourish through the context of a local healthy church in Osaka, and God willing, get to plant other churches in Japan, healthy churches that are Japanese led, not led by us, that are led by the people, because they know their people best. They know how to speak the heart language, not only in like a language way, but how to communicate it. And we can learn, and that's what we're seeking to do. But truly, when I think 5-10 years down the road, I'm like, man, I want to pray and see a thriving Japanese congregation of people that love each other, that want to take the gospel of the redeeming truth of Christ to their families, to their workplaces, to see Osaka completely transformed by Jesus.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I remember talking to you about this a little bit while we were there, and I thought it was so cool that you're the thing that stuck out to me when you were talking about it is that you want to plant a church, but the main language be Japanese, not like an English church that's there that caters to the Japanese people, but that you want it to be a Japanese like Christian church, which is so it will be so impactful. What you're doing now is impactful, but that itself, it's just, really looking towards the heart of like what's actually needed. So it's really cool.
Thank you.
How far along do you think that you are in that process? I mean, you may not know how to answer that question, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, because you guys were here, let me backtrack, in March. So I'm even thinking, what has changed even since getting to see you? I feel like, honestly, a lot has changed in the past 6 months to a year. Especially with language learning. So all of us did like formal Japanese language school, which is amazing and it's great. Learned so much there. But, even now, getting to be in a place where my language is in a place where it's still scary to start relationships with people and be like bold for the sake of Christ and say, I want to pursue you, and do you want to hang out? That feels, I'm even learning like, okay, that feels a little scary no matter where you are, to be like, hi, do you want to hang out? But getting now to do that in Japanese, more of my relationships are changing to be fully in Japanese, which previously they were English and Japanese, because my friends were, I like to describe it as like they were reaching over kind of this like language barrier for my sake, so they would speak in English, and now I kind of get to reach back over and say, hey, you've worked, and it increases my appreciation for those friends that would speak in English for hours on end with me. I'm like, that was really probably tiring for you, and I'm so grateful that you would spend time with me and do that. And now getting to be in a place where language is still really hard, still studying a lot of hours of my day, but getting to see the relational piece. So I would still say we're in like the very beginning stages of it, but it feels way more possible. I feel like my first year and a half here, I was like, I'm learning how to say, what foods do you like? How do you get from what foods do you like to what do you believe about the world? Like that feels a giant jump.
A giant jump. Yeah, absolutely.
A huge jump. But now even getting to learn, more spiritual language, asking people, what do you believe? What are your hopes? And for most Japanese people, when we ask, or when I ask, what do you believe? What do you think about your life? When you die, what do you want to be remembered for? And it's the first time they've ever been asked that. And these friends are in their 20s, and it's the first time they've ever thought about, what do I think? And it's really amazing to see that like that's your step one, is what do you think? And seeing that you get to build on, what do you think, to what do you believe? So all of that to answer beginning stages, but in a really special place right now. I can't really put my finger on it, but a lot of us are seeing more of those conversations happening in Japanese, which felt impossible 2 years ago. So beginning stages, but
Yeah.
moving way faster than I think I anticipated, just seeing how people are opening up, especially when you know their language. I'm just seeing people. I have a friend who we were friends in English for a year and a half. And then
Mm-hmm.
one time I said, hey, can we just do Japanese? Let's hang out, get coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a totally different side of her.
Wow.
And I thought, is that who you are? Is that like
Mm-hmm.
your heart and that your soul that I'm seeing that I haven't gotten to see fully? And so, yeah, that's just a really exciting thing that gets to happen that just takes a lot of time, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely.
So worth it.
That is so cool that you're able to see that shift in someone.
Yes.
Just because, I mean, like, comfort makes things easier. It's easier to open up about yourself if you're comfortable in general.
Yeah.
And I totally related to you being like, it must be exhausting. And I'm sure you're exhausted at the end of the days when you've talked in Japanese the whole day. Because like, I mean, even at work when I'm thinking through a really tough problem, and it's like I didn't exert myself in any physical way or anything like that, but I was just thinking so much, and I'm tired. So it probably, I mean, it takes it out of them to try to talk with you. Because I mean, what I noticed when I was there was English. People who knew English, they still didn't even really like know it very well. Because I would ask a question, and they would respond in English, and they would give me a really obscure answer. And I'd think about the way they answered my question, and I could say, oh, you know what? I understand why you answered the way you did, but that is not what I meant with the question that I asked you. So like,
Yes.
I can't imagine like the doors that are opening now because you were speaking their language. So
Yeah.
are people good with you when you try and they like, and you like mess something up or?
Oh yeah. I think especially in Osaka, the people here, the vibe, the culture, is so friendly and so, not that other places in Japan aren't, but I think especially here, I feel a difference if I'm traveling around Japan and then I come home and it feels almost like a safe place that I'm like, okay, I know that you're not going to laugh at me. And no one ever laughs at me, but I know that you're going to make every effort to help me. And so I think that's been so key to my language learning process that, if today I want to figure out how to, I'm trying to think of an example, like if I want to go get something repaired, like a clothing item repaired, and I've never done that before in Japanese, that it feels obviously scary because I don't know how you do it here, but I'm never scared of, oh, they're not gonna want to invest in me right now.
Right.
Which is really so helpful. And it causes like some really fun moments. I've had countless moments where it's me and especially older people, because Japan has so many elderly people, that I'm this 20-something American trying to speak Japanese, and then it's these 80-year-old old people. Yeah. And I've had just countless moments where we're looking at each other cracking up because I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I don't really know Japanese that well. Can you help me?
Right.
And they're always willing, it's especially my neighborhood. I've just seen how friendly people are in my neighborhood, that I think everyone feels that in the places that they feel like are home.
Yeah.
I've had countless moments where I'm just saying, I have no idea what this word is, but
right.
And if not, let's use my phone, and I don't know where to go from here.
That's so funny. It's so good to hear that people are so like willing to teach and to work with you.
Yes.
Because I mean, I'm always concerned about that. Like I know a little Spanish, but I would never just be like, hey, I'll try to speak to you in Spanish to like someone who is here. Because I just like, I don't even want to try. Like,
Yeah.
So it's so props to you. I know you have to do it because like it's kind of your job, but at the same time, like it is a hard thing to put yourself out of your comfort zone like that every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's definitely not something I ever thought I'd find myself doing. I honestly have answered that question a few times recently where we're talking to people that maybe want to come here and move here. And they've said to me, well, do you like language learning? Is that something that you were passionate about before you moved here? And I thought, no, not at all. I don't even think I realized how big of a part of my everyday job is learning Japanese. And I'm not a language learning nerd. I don't really know that much about it. But I do know that you need common language to communicate and care for people. And so it's so worth it. You're so right. It's really hard, but it's so incredibly worth it that I will take the chaotic moments where people, by God's grace, understand me, and that we have this moment where I leave and I say, I think we really did understand each other. And I think that this is something that can happen, that we can do this in Japanese. I'll take those moments for every moment that I am studying one of the 3 alphabets and I'm frustrated.
Right.
So it's every day.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you study like daily, since you're not in like school anymore? You're not in the traditional Japanese language school now. So
yeah, no, I'm not. I was in it for about a year and a half. So that was 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. Very structured learning, which is how most people learn Japanese. I didn't know that, but a lot of people learn it that way. You get a student visa, all those great things. But now I feel like I'm thriving in the way that I'm doing Japanese learning. I'm doing a lot of private tutoring. So I go to a school and they thankfully have given me like a textbook that we work through. And so I do that 3 days a week at a school, a few different days throughout the week. I'll do different one-on-one meetings, whether that's online through a video chat or an in-person tutor. But each of them serve a different purpose because Japanese has so many different characteristics to it. So when I'm in class, thankfully it's with especially older people. So all my teachers are just older Japanese people, and we go through a book about historical Japanese figures, which I would have never thought to go through. But my teachers, hey, people don't change. People's histories don't change. So what if you learn about this? And it's been amazing how much I've learned about Japanese culture and history, because so much of history, there's such a deep, rich history in Japan that I truly think Americans can't grasp, just because America is a newer country, that I have a hard time even conceptualizing that. But we sit and we read essays and we talk about these historical figures that everyone in Japan knows, that, I can have conversations with people and say, oh, I know that person. And I know how it impacted, especially, I think I just read one about women in companies, which is really taboo to talk about here, but can bring up that woman and say, what do you think? What do you think about women working in Japan? Just these conversation starters that I couldn't have gotten to by myself. So
that's cool.
One of them. And then one of them in Japanese, there's something that makes it difficult is that there's casual conversation style and formal. So you're constantly making decisions about how basically not to offend people, which I think is really, is so much of it is just prayer and saying, God, I really want to communicate my heart, but oof, what's going to happen? And I know. And so I meet with someone to help me. When you start learning Japanese, you initially learn the formal conversation style. And then as you advance, you learn the casual version. But when you meet new people, you're supposed to speak formally, but I'm really out of practice because I learned that at the beginning, and I want so desperately to have relationships with people that I want to go casual, ooh, I'm close with this person, or this can be a door. But learning, I love how you were saying earlier, the way that someone in Japanese or English answered your question, you were thinking about it for a long time. because not only are you learning Japanese language, but you're thinking, how did Japanese people think? How would
Yeah.
you answer this in Japanese? I don't want to answer it in English in an American way of thinking, but directly
Right.
translate it to Japanese. So
Right.
I love that you were thinking about that, because that's been a huge part of my studying, is just thinking, how do I answer this Japanese?
Right. It was so interesting because it happened a few times before I really noticed what was going on. But I was asking. Oh, we were in Kyoto. We were at this bar, and we had befriended the bartender because he was a younger guy and he knew English, and so we were talking with him. And I asked him if the color red was an important symbol in the Japanese culture. And I was like, because like all of the gateways, I forgot the proper name, but like, yeah, those, and then like the circle and the flag and all this stuff. And he goes, "Oh yes, we like red. It's on the flag." And I was like, "Okay, like, yeah, I did mention that, and it was part of the question, but that's not the question I asked." And that was when it really like clicked with me. I was like, "Oh, like, even though you know English, like you don't know the English that I know." And so I can't imagine like what you're doing is probably so hard trying to understand Japanese and then the Japanese that they know. So, and that, it goes back to the why it's so important that you're trying to plant a Japanese first church, because I don't know do you think you could ever get to the point where like you do know Japanese in the way that they like speak it every day kind of thing?
I think that getting to the language level is possible. So something that I find encouraging and hard is that when you meet missionaries that have lived here in Japan, so the community is really small because there's not a lot of us.
Right.
They have been here, a lot of them 30, 40 years. And
oh wow,
you have to believe that they can speak fluent Japanese, right?
Right.
But I'm curious, I've never asked, do they feel like after 30, 40 years that they can communicate in the way that they seek to? Maybe they have the language competency, but have they figured it out? And I'd be really curious to hear what they say. I think generally I've just heard from people who have been here, right? I've been here 2.5 years. That is a drop in the puddle to 30, 40 years.
Yeah, right.
I was super humbled when I get to be in the room with those conversations, because I have no idea what I'm talking about, which is so humbling and so freeing that I get to talk to people that have been here this long. But I'd be curious what they would say. I have a friend that is the same age as me, in his 20s, that he's been in Japan, I think about 4 years now, and can speak. He can communicate articulately, but he has shared, he's like, I can communicate, but I can't connect.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's only possible, obviously, by the power of the Holy Spirit. And I'm excited to see what that looks like in the future.
Yeah.
For us and for people. But I'm more curious to what people would say who've been here for a really long time. That's a really good question.
Yeah, that is. I hope that you find that answer, and if you do, let me know, because that'll be. I'm curious to know. But something you just mentioned about the Holy Spirit is just, and something that's so important for me to believe and for you to believe, is that like if you are trying to articulate something, that the Spirit will make sure that it's heard the way that it needs to be heard. I just think about that passage in Acts where everyone heard, the word in their native tongue. No matter doesn't matter who was speaking what, they heard what they needed to hear. And so I just pray that happens for you and all of your friends there that are on mission, and that the people who need to hear, that their hearts are open to that, and that their ears are literally opened to what the Spirit is trying to speak to them. So Oh man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm super encouraged by that. That's so good. And I need that reminder again
Yeah.
today as I go and study. And yeah, I
Right.
love that. I'm so encouraged by it. I just think of a passage in Exodus, like he will be with your mouth and he'll teach you what you shall speak. And
Yeah.
then I need that not only when I'm sharing spiritual things, but I need that when I'm ordering at a restaurant and
Yeah.
I think I can do it in my own strength and I can't. So that really stirred into me. So thanks for sharing that. It's really true.
Oh, you're welcome. I try to do that when I can, but it's crazy that we were talking about this before we started the episode, the podcast, but it is now 8 p.m. for me in Atlanta and it's 9 a.m. for you tomorrow. And so you're about to start your day. I'm about to go to bed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so crazy.
It's so crazy. It's so
What is
weird.
on your plan for the day?
Well, today, thankfully, it's actually a national holiday. It's respect for
Oh,
the elderly.
we
So,
don't have that here. We don't respect the
no.
elderly in the U.S.
I know that's something that's been such a funny shift is even taking, my job, I take the Japanese national holidays, not the American ones.
Right.
Just little stuff like that that is just funny and I love it. It's part of my life. But not a whole lot. Our friends actually just moved into a new house, which is really exciting.
Your Japanese
Housing
friends?
American friends, some
Oh,
friends that are
okay,
on
okay.
with me. And so they're painting their house today. So I think I might go join them and we'll have a little bit of a
Fun.
painting DIY day, which
Yeah.
feels super American, which is kind of fun to do
Right.
sometimes. Or, my friends yesterday, they said, let's order pizza and let's, paint the house. And it feels
Oh
super
man.
American, which I love and is refreshing. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have the day off. Just kind of preparing. We're going as a team to northern Japan next week to Hokkaido. Do you know Hokkaido?
No, but there's so much to Japan that
Mhm.
I didn't realize how big Japan is. Um, because
Mhm.
all the maps, all the globes, everything make Japan look really small, and it is very
Yeah.
narrow, but it is so long, and there's so much to see.
Yes. There's so
So,
much to see, and there's so much variation even within
yeah,
Japan. The South and the North are totally different, which we would say similarly about America, but it's blown my
right,
mind that, right now it's been, oh my gosh, I'm sure the same in Atlanta. So hot. It's been a very hot summer, but
yeah,
we're going to Hokkaido and it's like 60s. Will feel like fall. So do
mm,
some preparation for that as we get away as a team to refresh, kind of refocus, celebrate what God's done in the past year and look forward. It's a really helpful marker for us.
yeah.
So
That's cool.
prep for that and get ready for another season in Japan.
Yeah. When you and your American friends hang out, do you always speak English? Do you try to speak Japanese to each other? Do you do a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think we do majority English, but
Mhm.
interestingly enough, I have one friend on the team that I almost always will say things in Japanese to. I don't know why.
Oh,
Me and her do a conversation class that we go to we go to a Japanese school and they host a Japanese conversation class once a week.
mhm.
And we go together, so maybe that's why that I feel comfortable with her, but
Mhm.
we speak in English majority, but I think are really wanting to move to speak more Japanese together,
Mhm.
especially now as we move into a new season, as more people are out of school.
Yeah.
We get to kind of overlap and spend time with each other's friends more. So we have like
Oh,
ministry
cool.
partners on our team.
Yeah.
So my roommate and I are ministry partners, but because people have more flexibility now that we're out of school, we get to kind of make those decisions more on interest. So a great example
Mm.
of that is one of my teammates, her Japanese friend loves flowers and she's a florist and I
Mhm.
love flowers. It's like my favorite thing. So she said, come hang out with us, come spend time with my friend and let me introduce you to her.
Yeah.
And this Japanese friend only speaks Japanese. So I
Yeah.
think for the first time, me and my American teammate and this Japanese girl, we were all speaking Japanese together. And it was so re energizing and it was so encouraging
Yeah.
because afterwards I was like, I haven't heard your Japanese in a few months, and it's gotten so good, and just got to encourage each other in a new way.
Yeah,
So
that's
I think
cool.
we're kind of on the path to getting to do that and getting to hear each other,
Yeah,
hear different ways we've grown. Because it's, I mean, yeah, it can be intimidating to speak Japanese in front of other Americans in a
right,
way,
right.
just because like, oh, this is hard. But I think
Yeah,
we've really seen how it can be an encouraging experience. It can be one that's refining, but really awesome, and like get to bounce off one another.
that's so cool to hear, and it's cool that you guys are getting more comfortable with that. But I also like, again, going back to like when we met you right in the middle of our trip, like pretty
Mm-hmm.
much we saw you in the middle, and it was so refreshing to have that conversation with you in English and just like not have to think, just like we could just talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet that like getting to talk with those people in English is good for you and for them. And it's so great.
Yeah.
I just keep going. It's so great that you have people that you're there with, because
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what it would be like
I
without them.
Until I'm blue in the face, I'll say they're my lifeline. I mean,
Yeah.
I know people move overseas, depending circumstances, and go alone,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, like that's what God has for them. But thankfully for me, and I'm really humbled, I had no idea how impactful my team would be for me, and especially waiting with them stateside for, a year and a half, 2 years in
Yeah.
Wisconsin,
Yeah.
getting ready to be here together for so long, really helped like solidify those relationships. And now being here together, I cannot even fathom not doing
Mm-hmm.
this together, not doing it in
Yeah.
community. Um, they, I will, yeah, until I'm, like I said, until I'm blue in the face,
Yeah.
will see so many things about them, because
Yeah.
I
That's so
truly
cool.
am just so thankful that not only are they, I mean, there's so many roles to me, right? They're my coworkers, they're my roommates, my friends,
Mm-hmm.
my church family. They hit all these boxes that people don't normally um, live, work, have church, play, like all these things with the same groups of
Yeah.
people. But
Right.
I do, and I think that that's really challenging to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, are these 9 people going to vibe and have similar interests and have fun together? And
Yeah.
God has just done immeasurably more than I could have asked or imagined
Yeah.
with each of them, that I sit at tables with them, and I just look around and say, isn't it crazy that we actually enjoy spending time together? It's just such a
Right.
gift.
Yeah. That is
We
so
would have never
true.
been friends
Right.
outside of this. Truly,
Yeah.
like 4 of us went to TCU, which TCU is not that big. And
Mm-hmm.
so 3 of us girls knew each other through campus ministry. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's one girl who I never met, and she went to TCU. And it just shows
Mm-hmm.
that we had different interests. We had different places on campus that we were involved in. And
Yeah.
the only way we could have had a friendship is that we would be sent overseas together and be on a team.
Yeah.
And she is different than me in so many ways in like work capacity. We just recently did, not to derail us, we just did the 6 working geniuses, if you've ever heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this like leadership assessment, and me and her
Yeah.
are opposite in every way.
Yeah.
And I just kept telling her, praise God that we're nothing alike, because I need you and you need me.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it would be so boring if we didn't have each other.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm so thankful. We're all just this funny we're all from different places, different ministries. It's
Yeah.
just whenever people visit us and they say, okay, what's the common thread between all of you? I think a lot of times we just say, we love Jesus, we love the
Yeah.
nations, so we're here.
Right. And I mean,
Not
those are the important things. So
100%. Yeah.
oh, that's so good to hear. So to your flowers friend, I don't know how far this is from y'all, and I don't remember when we went, but that park we ended up going to, Hitachi Seaside Park, it was amazing. So many flowers, so beautiful. If you guys want to take some type of trip to get there, it was
Yes.
fantastic. So
Was that up in Tokyo or Kobe
I
area? Do you
think it
remember?
was Tokyo. We went from Tokyo,
Okay.
but I mean it took us a while to get there. I think it was like a 3 hour trip um,
Okay.
from Tokyo to get there. And I don't know which way we went, But I do remember having to take a bus, and that was really hard.
Okay. Well, you guys spoke so highly of it. I want to
Oh,
go.
it's fantastic. I made a YouTube video about it. I can send it to you so you can see it.
Please do. Because how did you even find it if it was 3 hours away from
Josie? If she could, and I've been encouraging her to, she should be a travel agent, because she just loves to do it. She loves to do all the research. She loves to get immersed and do all these things. And so it was something that she found people recommended on blogs and things like that. And so we ended up going. We love a park. When we go anywhere, we end up finding the parks and just walking around in them. And so it was beautiful. It was massive. We spent 4 or 5 hours there, and we didn't even see the whole thing.
Wow.
So
okay, I need to put it on my list.
Yeah, it was really cool. Look at me giving you a tip.
No, that's great. It's so funny because interestingly enough, people always ask me, have you done the big tourist things? And I'm like, some of them, but not all of them. So I love getting recommendations and just getting to do the fun touristy things, because Japan has so much to offer. And when you said, what are you doing today? I thought to myself, I'm in Japan. I have to often pinch myself and realize I'm in Japan. There's so much I can do here. I love getting recommendations from whether it's people who've traveled here for fun or like my teachers who are in their late 70s and have just amazing years of life in Japan, that they have the best recommendations, because I've only been here for such a short amount of time that I'll take all the recommendations I can. So that's
absolutely
great.
I love that the Japanese do the famous things. That's something you told us too. When you go places, everyone does what's famous in the city, which is cool.
Yeah, and I'm slowly becoming that person, which I love. It's so fun and it feels very Japanese. But yes, we recently went for a friend's birthday to Awaji Island, which is about an hour by hour by car. And I had told one of my teachers that I went, and they said, "Oh, did you have the famous meat, the famous fish? Did you have any of that?" And I just shook my head and I said, "No, we made Mexican food."
Oh man.
And I said, "I'm so sorry. Next time I'll eat it. Next time, thank you for the recommendations." You could tell it didn't fit when I said we made Mexican food for my friend's birthday. What? Why?
Right.
So,
that's funny.
The lists are great, and it's so funny to hear people's reactions because I didn't get it when I first moved here. I didn't realize when you go, you try the famous food, you go to the famous places. But now I get it, that I'm like, oh, that's going to feel out of place if I didn't do that.
Right.
So sharing why.
When I want to go back and I want to see different parts, and I'll keep that in mind, because sometimes you're like, oh, as a tourist, I don't want to get caught in the tourist traps and things like that. But if that's what you're supposed to do, if that's the famous thing, quote unquote, it's not even just Americans or other foreign people. It's Japanese people from other parts of Japan are doing those things too.
Yes.
So it's a cool concept.
And they're so, I don't know if you noticed this, but the waiting in line culture, did you notice that at all when you were here?
There are a lot of lines.
A lot of lines. And I'll never forget when this clicked for me, that it's such an obvious thing to them, that they see, well, it's good, so of course they're going to wait in line for it. Whereas my thought is, ooh, I have other things to do. I just want to get it fast. I want what's good, but I don't want to wait in this giant line. And it's something that there's so many little nuggets of truth in each cultural thing here. I'm always really curious to see how Japanese Christians think about waiting for revival to come to Japan, because they're willing to wait an hour, 2 hours for good tonkatsu,
noodles,
good pork. But how much more willing are they to wait for God to move here? It's just they're so patient, and I have so much to learn from them, because you'll wait that long for food. And I won't
Yeah,
even do that. I'm so
I know.
impatient, and
What a
I love
great
getting to,
perspective.
yeah, that changed things when I started to
Yeah,
think about that.
that is a great perspective. I remember when we got to Kyoto the first night. So we stayed in that Airbnb that you recommended us in Osaka, and
Good.
it was so great that we canceled the hotel we were going to stay at in Kyoto and got an Airbnb with the same person. He had more in Kyoto. Um,
Mm,
so we got an Airbnb there. This one was like a more of a hotel style. So there was someone that working like in the lobby, and we asked
mm,
him, we're like, hey, like we want ramen. We want good ramen. Where should we go? And so he told us, he's like, here, they go to this place. This is like where everyone goes. And we had just
mm,
talked to you about doing the famous thing. So we're like, okay, we'll go to this one. He's like, but if you don't go to that one, this one over here is good too.
mm,
And we went and we got in line, and the line was not moving and not moving. And we were hungry and it was raining. And so we're like, we're not waiting. So we went back to the other place that he recommended, waited 5 minutes in line, and had a fantastic meal. So it still ended up being great. But it's just like, we were impatient. We were like, you know what? Like how much better is this going to be than the other place? So,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
uh, but
Super humbling. The waiting
yeah, it
time.
is. I know. And just now waiting for revival. Cause like I started
Mm-hmm.
to think about it here too in the US. And I don't know, when's the last time you've been back?
I was back last winter, so winter of
Okay.
2023. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So almost a year. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Not recent. Yeah.
Not recent. But
Mm-mm.
I don't know what you felt or anything like when you were here last, but like
Mm-hmm.
the church here is it's been in a weird place for a while,
Mm-hmm.
in the US. And I really think that revival is starting here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like, I didn't realize I was waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's now that I see it happening, it's really good to see people are speaking out and standing up for like against the things that like people have just been tolerating for so long.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's just the circles that I'm in, and maybe it's not actually happening, but at least in my circles, it is starting to happen, which has been good to see. So,
Yeah. And that's where it
um,
starts, right? Like
right.
that's where it happens. And
Hmm.
I think we'll see more and more happening. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm just thinking about a lot of different things that of God's promises in his word. Like
Yeah.
he is faithful consistently. Like he
Hmm.
will do much with small, like the faith of a mustard seed. He really
Absolutely.
will do with that. And I I love getting to hear people, whether it's America or anywhere in the world,
Hmm.
be in tune with what God is doing where they're at. Where even if you're like, okay, well, at my church or my circle, God is
Hmm.
bringing a renewed sense of his presence and repentance and
Yeah.
joy. Like
Yeah.
that's such a win. And that's so,
Hmm.
it refreshes me so much. I think, especially being here, like you were saying, I don't know how I felt when I was back. I think when I was back, I was just thankful to hear stories about people pursuing God. And,
Yeah.
you know, because he's the same God, whether I'm in America or in Japan.
Right. Right.
Um, which I think sometimes can be a little hard to connect because there's just not believers here. And so it's like, okay, this is the global church that these people everywhere are
Hmm.
moving and changing. But I'm, yeah, I think just even hearing stories like that is like a new, like a shot of espresso to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, that's so good. And
Yeah.
that will impact what God is doing here. That will impact what
Absolutely.
God's doing all around the world. When people are awake to his presence, they respond to him. And it's
Hmm.
just, I so believe that obviously this is the role that God's asked me to be, is someone who moves and lives here.
Hmm.
But even hearing like revival for prayer for Japan, like I feel it. I feel it in my daily
Yeah.
life. And so it's really encouraging. I think just when people are awake to what God is
Yeah.
doing, things are going to change, and that's
Absolutely.
encouraging, and that's what he promises us.
Definitely. I mean, you've been there 2.5 years now. Like, have you seen a shift at all? Like, have you are there people that you're friends with who have now come to Christ and things along those lines?
Yeah, I think the biggest change I've seen, so we do a summer kind of internship program for
Mm-hmm.
students in America, and they come and they live in Japan and they do a lot of outreach ministry for about 6 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
they came last year and they had friends that were like kind of interested in spiritual conversation, kind of not.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to just love on them and it was amazing. I fast forward to this year. I mean, week 3, these students, Japanese friends, are coming to church. And even that is so crazy for someone to say, right? They're 20 to 25 and they've never heard of church, but they're willing to go to church with an American and like go to a
Yeah.
Japanese church.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I was like, what? Your friend wants to come to church? Your friend wants to read the Bible with you? Just
Yeah.
seeing in a year, I think how much has changed in the spiritual state of Japan, just counting those huge wins. There's a script, 2 Peter 2:3. It says, "The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promises, as some count
Mm-hmm.
slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing that any would perish, but that all would reach
Yeah.
repentance."
Yeah.
And
That's good.
we just kept saying that to each other, that the Lord is not slow to fulfill his promises, that like counting those wins of the friend that has gone to church for the first time in their whole life, and just seeing the difference. I don't know if there's a specific reason why this year that's changed. The only
Mm-hmm.
reason I can think of is consistent interceding prayer for Japan, that would happen,
Yeah.
that would change. Um, and so I think a lot of us in the Japanese missionary community and churches here sense something moving. I had
That's great.
one of the like people who have been here for 30, 40 years, a couple, John and Elaine Maine, they said to our team before we launched, they said if they could go back and start their ministry right now, that they would give anything to do that. If they could come to
Wow.
Japan right now. And I mean, that is just so encouraging to me that
Yeah.
they said, we sense something happening. We see a difference. So it feels small, but then when you think about it in the big picture, I'm like, okay, I don't know what it is, but something is changing here.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's so good to hear. And I want to encourage you to not shy away from asking the Lord to bless you and your
Mm-hmm.
team and for you yourself and also for the mission that you're on. It was a message that was at our church today. Our pastor was talking about prayer and how people are afraid to ask for blessings, but at the end of the day, the Lord wants to bless us. And that's not the prosperity gospel or anything like that. That's just like you said it earlier, God has done immeasurably more for you than you have ever could have imagined. And like he says that he will. And so like we shouldn't shy away from asking for the blessings that he wants to give to us. And one of the key things that I honed in on was that like he said like don't ask for something specific. Hey, bless me in this specific way. Like it was the story of Jabez. He said like I ask that you bless me and that you expand my territory. That's all he said. He didn't like say like, oh, give me this much land or this much acreage or anything like that. He just expand, because as soon as you ask for something, you put a limit on what God's blessing is for you. And so like it was so good to me, and I just feel like you guys can start doing that. If you aren't already, like you should, like just ask the Lord to bless you in your endeavors. Ask the Lord to bless you in your personal lives, in your friendships, and I just I just wanted to share that with you. So
No, it's so good. Thank you so much for that encouragement. It's so good to remember and hold on to the promises of God. So I'm super encouraged by that.
absolutely,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. I'm going to ask you, what do you miss most about home? What is your favorite thing about Japan, if you have one? And then we'll say our goodbyes.
Oh, that's great. What do I miss? I feel like obviously my family. I'm an only
Right.
child, so I miss hanging out with my parents and my dog. But I also really miss Diet Coke on a
Oh,
consistent level. Their family and Diet Coke feel pretty similar.
wow.
um,
They don't have Diet Coke there?
no,
Oh,
no, I kind of just miss a refreshing Diet Coke, but it's not that bad. But I feel like when I think about things I miss, that's up there.
that's funny. I wouldn't have
Yeah,
guessed that. That's
Diet Coke. Um,
yeah.
yeah, those are some big things. And I also miss, this is maybe just in the same lieu of my family, I miss petting dogs. I'm not a huge dog person, but
Okay.
here there's, in America, it's like you see a big dog and it's not taboo
Yeah.
to say, "Can I pet your dog?" and
Right.
have like a moment with. I think that's something that we all miss is just getting to like pet a dog, play with a dog at random. I'm probably
Oh,
thinking about Josie's bulldogs right now, but
yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah.
You
Um,
don't pet people's dog, like they don't like that.
you can
I'm not
ask,
surprised.
but normally they're really small dogs. And then,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, so
They
let's say
dress
you're
them
at a
up.
park, you dress them up and they're in a stroller. So it's like,
Yes.
I'm not going to say, "Can I pet your dog while it's in the stroller?" That feels a little weird.
Yeah. Oh, we noticed that. We went one park we went to, like everyone was pushing their dog in a stroller and everyone's dog was in like a costume and out.
Right. Right. So I
Yeah.
kind of just the giant dogs that come up and like give you some love. So
Right.
that's a random thought for today.
That is a random thought. That's a good one.
Mhm. And then my favorite thing, oh my gosh, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Obviously, the people, just, I love the people here. Trying to think of things that I missed when I went back to
Hmm.
America. What did I miss the most about being here?
Good sushi.
Good sushi. Yeah, the food. I
Yeah.
think that's a good one. I love that I can go somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I don't know what's on the menu. Maybe I've never tried the food.
Yeah.
I love that it's almost always really delicious and it's
Yeah.
like fresh. It's made with excellence.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. I love that there's not I don't have a fear around food here because it probably won't make you sick. There's such a high
Yeah.
standard of integrity
Right.
here, that it's just really like blessed. I think my perspective about Japan, that I have such a
Hmm.
trust with the people here that if I say, "Hey, can you recommend something to me?" I can say yes, and it probably won't be that bad. Like, I don't think I've ever had something that's made me sick or that I don't like because it's
Yeah.
just, one time I had blowfish and it's really dangerous to eat blowfish. I don't know if you
Oh,
know
you had
that.
that? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And kind of a scary experience
Right.
to have blow, and I had it like 4 different ways. And we have this old Japanese friend, this old man that
Hmm.
loves to show us around Japan. And so him and his wife will take us out to places like
Oh, that's
eating
so
blowfish
cool.
that I wouldn't ever just pick up on a random day and want to go to.
Yeah.
And so, stuff like that, that I can sit with peace and joy and focus on connecting with them and telling them about our lives and hearing about
Hmm.
them instead of freaking out about, is the blowfish going to kill me?
Right.
So I love that about Japan. Love, yeah, just how much pride they have in their craft. I think that's really
Yeah.
special. I'm sure you experience that in any restaurant or any
Hmm.
thing that you buy. There's just such a high level of integrity, of excellence. And I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, we loved our experience there, and I want to go back because, like I said at the beginning, like I didn't really know what was going on, and so
Mhm.
like I didn't know if I was really enjoying it. And it sounds weird to say, but like I was like, I don't know if I really enjoyed this trip. And then I look back and I'm like, oh no, I totally did. Like it was so cool. The experiences we had were amazing. That time change though really kicks you in the butt. It
Yeah,
was
I get.
hard.
Hmm. My roommate just got back last week, and it's still getting her. It's
Yeah.
brutal. Y'all,
Yeah.
people that come to travel here for a week, I just commend and applaud because you want to do so much, but your body is saying go to sleep.
Yeah.
I commend
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. It was tough. But I hope we get to come back. And if we do, we'll let you know. We'll
Yeah.
try to make some time too. I don't know where we're going to be, but we'll definitely try to make sure we can see you.
I'll come see you guys wherever you are.
Come do the famous stuff with us wherever we go.
Yes, I would love nothing more.
Perfect. Well, EmilyAnn, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great pizza party and painting party.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. It was joyous to talk to you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to follow on whatever platform you're listening on and send it to a friend. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. They really help boost my exposure. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and liking every video. It really helps the algorithm. Links to all my and my guest socials, along with music credits, are in the show notes. Thanks so much. Love y'all. Bye.